Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're going to be watching this and hearing this. I'm your boy, the HOD of the PSP, and welcome back to episode 77 of the Pitchside Podcast. Follow us on social media, Side PSP on Twitter, Pitchside Pod on Instagram. Listen to this on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. Most importantly, like, share, comment on the YouTube version, and subscribe to the YouTube channel and enable notifications to receive all the updates. You're welcome, and join us for more. This one place to kick off, though, it is SerieA, and we're going to be starting talking about the big Milan derby, of course, but not before the game between Parma and Udinese. 2-2 it ended in Parma, the goals coming in from Cornelius and Kuka for Parma in the first half, ending the first half 2-0 up against Udinese, but the side from Udine managed to make a comeback, scored by Okaka in the 64th minute, and in the 80th minute it was Newtank scoring the equaliser for Udinese, saving them 1 point away from home. Udinese go a little bit up the table with 25 points at the 13th place, while Parma keep struggling down in the bottom of the table at 19th. It's not exactly the best of seasons for Parma compared to last season, but you know, they're still a good side relatively to watch, so at least they would take that. Moving on, and of course, the AC Milan versus Inter, the derby della Madonnina, the big talking point, the big anticipated derby from the week, and, you know, again, I'm not going to mention a lot of more than I mentioned in the review about the tactics of the game or how the game went down. But all I'm going to say is if you don't back Inter to win the league now, it's crazy. AC Milan, everybody was expecting them to drop points at a certain point, to, you know, sort of drop physically and, you know, in their overall level, because what they're doing was punching above their weight, really. Nobody expected them to compete for the title, even with Zlatan Ibrahimovic back and with the whole motivation kind of thing around them. They've been on a mean run, yes, for the last year or so. They've been on a mean run, undefeated at home, undefeated in the league overall, being the best side since the restart, all that kind of stuff. But still, nobody expected them to play for the title, to be competing for the title this deep into the season. But still, they are competing for the title, and they had a decent season where mostly they were the leaders, everybody was following them, the dreams got bigger and the ambitions got bigger, but also the pressure got bigger on AC Milan, and eventually they crumbled, and these the last two matches for them, against Spezia last week and now against Inter, they crumbled and they did collapse in the final hurdle. Inter Milan completely and thoroughly deserved victors against their Milan rivals. They played the game that they liked. They started strong, scored first. They managed the game pretty well, although they were under a bit of pressure from AC Milan late on in the first half and early on in the second half as well, but they still countered it well, and they scored 2 other goals in the second half to give themselves an important victory that, again, would put them favourites for the league, and they should be winning this, because, I mean, Antonio Conte has no excuses whatsoever now for losing the title. This is his title to lose. He's out of Europe, he's out of the Cup, he has full weeks to prepare for the league matches, he doesn't have, you know, a lot of injuries in his squad. Only Sensi was missing from the squad yesterday, so he has a fully fit available squad for him to choose, and I think unless Juventus make a miraculous comeback, and that should be linked with Inter dropping a lot of points, I don't see anything else other than Inter winning the league, in my opinion, because Juventus now are, you know, 11 points behind Inter, and they have a game in hand, so that could be 8 points. And unless Inter lose 2 games in a row or drop at least 5 points in the next 2 games, I don't think that Juventus are going to be catching up to them. So it will be between them and AC Milan. It's 4 points. It's a good lead and a healthy gap on the table ahead of them, but I don't think it's a very safe lead. It could still be, you know, core top 2 if Inter Milan drop points in any given game in the next 15 fixtures or so. As for Juventus, I don't think they will try. They will try to catch up, but I think it's too much for them, even with all of their, abilities, and of course with Cristiano Ronaldo. But I think they did themselves bad for most of the season with the way they were playing, and Andrea Pirlo, still inexperienced, did himself bad with the way he's been playing, and with the confusion that he had early on in the season. So I think it's too much for him, and probably Inter are going to be winning the league. A word for AC Milan. I think AC Milan should not be ashamed of themselves. If they lose the title, if they don't win it, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to be a catastrophe, because they had a very, very decent season. They are a very decent team. I mean, it's a big improvement from the last decade or so that Inter Milan are now in Champions League spots. I mean, I reckon they will be in the Champions League, at least like the worst scenario, again, that they will be in the Champions League, unless Roma or Atalanta, catch them up and take their second spot. I don't see AC Milan drawing below second, third at the worst of scenarios. I think they will drop the third. I don't see them dropping more than the third on the table, really. Although the competition is pretty fierce for the Champions League spots up there. But AC Milan, I think they did really well. They honoured themselves again. They improved. They transformed their standard from the last decade, really. Now, I think, bit by bit, with more recruitments, with more signings, with a bit more work from the Milan board, I think Milan side should be returning to its glorious days in a couple of years' time. I don't see any reason why not. Speaking of Champions League spots, though, Atalanta and Napoli had a terrific thriller in Bergamo. 4-2 it ended for Gianpiero Gasperini's side. It was a goalless first half, by the way. This was incredible. This was literally a game of two halves. The first half was goalless, was even boring, I would say, from both sides. Only one shot on target from Napoli, and then in the second half, of course, everything exploded to life. Napoli scored equaliser after Zapata opened in the 52nd minute. Zielinski scored in the 58th to equalise. Gosens and Muriel, in quick fashion, inside 7 minutes of each other, made it 2-1, made 3-1, rather, for Atalanta. Romero made it 4-2 after Robin Gosens scored an unfortunate own goal in the 76th minute. Christian Romero, of course, making it 4-2. Atalanta now fourth on the table momentarily, of course, before Juventus play Crotone on Monday. They could be fifth or joint fifth with Lazio if Juventus managed to win against Crotone. Now, this is going to be a big message, I think, for Real Madrid, mostly in the Champions League. Of course, Atalanta playing Real Madrid in the Champions League in midweek, so that's going to be quite something to behold. 4 goals against Napoli, and with the Real Madrid injuries and absentees, we're going to get to those in a moment. I mean, with the likes of Ramos not there, Odriozola not there, Carvajal not there, Federico Valverde in the midfield, Benzema up forward, Eden Hazard. It looks like it will be such a tough game for for Real Madrid, against Gianpiero Gasperini's boys in Bergamo. And Atalanta seem I'm not like favourite, but I think it's more 50-50 now, with the current situation of Real Madrid and the current situation of Atalanta, who are recovering, really, I would say, from their early season woes, and they could still end up in Champions League spots at the end of the season. I think they will probably end up in Champions League spots. I really want them to, because they became sort of a stalwart now of the Champions League. Just in their second ever appearance in that competition, they became familiar faces that they want to see in the next edition. And because they set standards now for themselves over the last 3 seasons. Also, that's I think incredible. And of course, we're going to get to the preview of that game tomorrow in full details between Atalanta and Real Madrid. Benevento drawing and forcing another draw out of another big side this season in the Serie A against now AS Roma, a goalless draw. Benevento with 10 men since the 57th minute. Glick being sent off in the 57th minute, but Roma couldn't capitalize on the opportunities they had. The full game was under their control, really. They dominated the game. They had a lot of attempts, but of course the goalkeeper for Benevento was there to make an incredible number of saves. Montepo making 8 saves on the day, denying Roma any opportunity to score and forcing them to concede the goalless draw against Benevento. That didn't help. Of course, they could have been 3 points of AC Milan. They could have been 7 of Inter. They could have gotten themselves a bit into the title contention picture. But now it looks like maybe even they will lose their spot to Atalanta maybe in the next couple of weeks. Of course, the fixture continues with Juventus and Crotone on Monday, and round 24 kicks off on Friday. Torino faces Sassuolo on Saturday, 27th February. Spezia, Parma, Bologna, Lazio, Verona, Juve. On Sunday, 28th, Sampdoria, Atalanta, Udinese, Fiorentina, Inter versus Genoa, Crotone, Cagliari, Napoli, Benevento, and Roma versus AC Milan. This is a crucial game, and I think, again, if you look at it, this might benefit Lazio, who play, as I mentioned, play Bologna away. It benefits Atalanta, who play Sampdoria away if they win, and it will benefit Juve, of course, who play Verona if they win. The table of the Serie A at the moment stands like this: Inter Milan 53 points, 49 for AC Milan, 44 for Roma, 43 for Atalanta, 43 for Lazio, 42 for Juve, of course, a game in hand, or 2 games in hand now, a game against Crotone on Monday and then Napoli game, 40 for Napoli, a game in hand, 35 for Sassuolo, 34 for Verona, 30 for Sampdoria, 26 for Genoa, 25 for Bologna, Udinese, Fiorentina, 24 for Spezia, 20 for Torino, 15 Cagliari, 14 for Parma, and 12 for Crotone at the bottom of the table. From the Serie A to the Premier League now, and we're kicking things off in London. West Ham managed to defeat Tottenham 2-1. It was an eventful Sunday for them. 2-1 for West Ham against Tottenham. It was a disappointing game again for Tottenham, and they had a lot of those in the last couple of months in the Premier League. Tottenham's form at the moment is not cool in the Premier League, really. This is their second straight loss in the Premier League. They're 5th in the last 6. They only defeated West Brom. They only defeated relegation sides pretty much. They only defeated West Brom and Sheffield United before that. So aside from that, that was a loss against Chelsea, a loss against Brighton, a loss against Liverpool, and the loss against City, of course, and now the loss against West Ham in a game that Jesse Lingard got to score a goal in it. It was ridiculous. Mikel Antonio opened the scoring since the 5th minute. Bad mistake from the Tottenham defence on long balls again. The Achilles heel for Tottenham defence seems like long balls between the centre halves, between Eric Dyer and Davinson Sanchez, who managed to have some shambolic defensive performances as of late. Of course, Sanchez, I think, still recovering from the fact that he was humiliated by Ilkay Gundogan in the game against City a couple of weeks ago. I mean, when Jesse Lingard get to score a goal against you and get to be the star of the game pretty much, and getting to have some of the best stats overall, you need to check yourself. I think you need to check yourself, really. Tottenham, of course, dominated the game. Let's not make any mistakes about it. Tottenham completely bossed the game. They tried and they did everything they can in order to try and score, especially in the second half, I think, when they went down. Because in the first half it was a bit balanced, but in the second half it was all Tottenham. 67% possession for Tottenham. They tried to dominate, but again, they're not comfortable when on possession, and that's why West Ham were just happy to sit deep and defend they did, despite the fact they conceded from a corner from Lucas Moura in the 64th minute from a Gareth Bale assist, which probably could have been the only light at the end of the tunnel, and the fact that Gareth Bale is back to scoring again, and back to assisting again, scoring in the Europa League and assisting in the Premier League, maybe will give them a little bit of hope going forward. But of course, we need to address West Ham. We cannot just discredit Tottenham for their performance and do not recommend West Ham for theirs, and obviously we need to recommend them for their whole season so far. They are 4th on the table at the end of the fixture. 45 points they have, and they're not, and they could even go further. Like, the thing is, they could even go further. They could have the highest finish they would ever have in their history, probably, I know that they won the title back in the 30s or whatever, but I mean since the Premier League being instated, 45 points again behind the likes of Man United and Leicester with 4 points on the same amount of points. Those two, I mean, West Ham really, David Moyes and West Ham, they're having an incredible season so far. And it's not just about the incredible season, their form is ridiculous as well if you look at it. They only lost against Liverpool in the last 10 games in the league and in all competitions overall. They have wins over Burnley, wins over Crystal Palace, over Aston Villa in the league, Sheffield United, and now Tottenham. Of course, their only loss was against Man United in the Cup and Liverpool in the league in the last 10 games in all competitions or something. That is quite interesting and quite incredible work from David Moyes, who's been doing a solid job at West Ham and turning, I think, all eyes on them for positive reasons after it had been turned for negative reasons for the last season. From London, and we move to the Midlands now. It's the Midland derby, Aston Villa versus Leicester City, and Leicester City ran away with this game, or almost did run away with this game. 2-0 at the first half, they found themselves leading. James Maddison and Harvey Barnes with the goals in quick fashion, in quick succession, 19 and 23rd minute, and then Aston Villa left chasing the game. Bernard Traore over at the second half started early and scored in the 48th minute, giving Aston Villa a lifeline, but they couldn't make it with the draw from that game. Of course, no Grealish on the side for injury. It was, it's pretty effective, pretty affective to their side. The fact that they have no Grealish, they lacked his drive, they lacked his skill of conserving the ball pretty much, his determination, the way he directs the play in the middle. So obviously they were lacking a big man. And Leicester on the other side, they weren't lacking their men, and they had a full squad. James Maddison, hero of the hour, probably one of the best playmakers in the world at the moment, scoring again and helping Leicester City to another victory, and an important victory, I would say, in holding that grip to a third place for Leicester City at the moment. This is a good result for them. They only lost against Leeds now in the last 10 games, also in all competitions. So, I mean, that is good when you beat the likes of Liverpool 3-1, and you beat, beat Liverpool 3-1, and you beat Brighton in the Cup, you beat Fulham away from home to take revenge, defeat Chelsea as well in Southampton in this year. They only lost once again in this year so far, and they've been really racking up points in the Premier League so far. They're going to be, everybody expected them to drop below the third place, but they're still in the Champions League spots. And again, this is another side that I want to see in Champions League spots next season because they're really good and they really deserve it. Back to London now from the Midlands, and it is Arsenal versus Man City. And this game, again, I'm not going to mention a lot more than what I did in the review, but I'm only going to say that Man City are this was a boring game. Alright, this was a boring old game, particularly in the second half, because the first half Man City ended strong. They dominated, they scored the goal, and they had a lot of chances to add second and third goal and just rout completely Arsenal, but they didn't for a reason or the other, by design, by accident. Trying to keep their fitness for the Champions League game against Gladbach on Tuesday is probably the bigger reason, but I think they slowed down the tempo so much that the game got really boring. And Arsenal, and people probably get this mistaken. If you look at the stats of the game or the scoreline or the way game went, you'll probably say, "But Arsenal were in the game, right?" No, at no point in the game Arsenal, made me feel that they could equalise. They didn't have proper chances. You talk about the possibilities they had overall. In the game, they had one shot on target. And that was in the first half. In the second half, despite the fact that they had more possession, and they had more possession than themselves in the first half, not than City, they didn't have any shot on target, and they didn't feel like they were playing, their best. They didn't feel like they could score in any point of the game. Man City with a one shot on target in the second half. Like a second half, 45 minutes in the second half, all the teams could muster was one shot on target. Like, the game got seriously boring by the end. You knew that Man City are going to be sleeping on that 1-0 lead, and they won't be trying to rush themselves to score a second goal or open themselves up in any way, shape or form. And I think that's their right. They've been going on a very, very mean run. Now, this is their 11th straight victory in the Premier League. Their 18th, I think, or 19th overall in all competition. If you look up their form, it's just WWWWW, and it just goes all the way. And since the turnaround, I mean, since the game against Southampton in late on in 2020 in the Premier League in round 14. Now they are 11 on the bounce in the Premier League, and again 18-0 competition. You add to that, add to that 2 wins in the EFL Cup, or 3 wins in the EFL Cup. You add to that 2 wins in the FA Cup, and of course, you end up with such an incredible form for Man City. Obviously, they're going to be winning the league. There's no discussion about this. It's just about how many points ahead of United and Leicester are going to be finishing, and how this is going to be dealt with by the other clubs next season, and how they're going to be finishing in the Champions League. Obviously, because it looks like there's a potential for another, English treble, but the Champions League is obviously the thing that Man City would be looking for. Man United would be looking for keeping the Champions League spots, at least. I mean, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer didn't try to concede the title race, but as Klopp did. But you know in their deepest of hearts that they would do. It was a hard job against Newcastle, at least in the first half for Manchester United. 3-1, it ended at Old Trafford. Marcus Rashford opening the score by an assist from Harry Maguire. Who thought I would be saying this sentence in 2021? Harry Maguire, with an assist, but that's what it is. It was Saint-Maximin with the equaliser inside 36 minutes from a bad clearance from guess who? Harry Maguire, giving bad the ball watching in the box, bad defending, and it's the equaliser from Saint-Maximin. Then, of course, in the second half, it was the 2 goals added for Man United, Daniel James and Bruno Fernandes from a penalty spot, making it 3-1 for Manchester United and helping the Red Devils to a big victory, I think. At least, again, to keep the Champions League spots, maybe not for the title. They're 10 points off Man City at the moment, so probably it's an impossible chance, but they still, finishing in the Champions League spots would be really. Quickly going on now to La Liga in Spain, and I think it was all about Barcelona. I mean, there's nothing important really in what happened yesterday in La Liga aside from Barcelona drawing against Cadiz. Cadiz in some sort of pool, they double now against Barcelona. They got points both home and away to Barcelona. 1-1 it ended at the Camp Nou. This was a game that was going one side all the game long until the very last moment. A defensive mistake from Longley means that Cadiz got a penalty. In the 89th minute, they scored after, of course, Barcelona got a penalty early on in the first half. It was, it's a clear penalty, really, for Messi scoring the opener. Barcelona in the first half were better in the second half. You know why? Because in the second half, they didn't have any shot on target. When Barcelona do not have any shot on target in the second half of a game in their own stadium against Cadiz, you know that this Barcelona side is over. The Guardiola era is over. The tiki-taka football is over. I mean, yes, they played 600, 700 passes. They played 883 passes in the game, and they couldn't score more than 1 goal, and the goal was via penalty, and they couldn't create a lot of chances aside from the penalty. This is incredibly ridiculous. If people didn't realize that the Guardiola era, the tiki-taka football, the sexy football is over at Barcelona, probably this is a good reminder that Ronald Koeman should be going forward. The Barca board should be going forward. The Barca fans should really change their expectations from Barcelona. The style of tiki-taka is dead at the moment. It's not doing its job. And with these kind of players, when you're playing it with Busquets, with likes of Piqué and Jordi Alba as well, and you're playing it with someone like Braithwaite, and you're bringing in someone like Braithwaite, I know he's injured and he's not available, but, It's generally talking. I mean, actually, he was a sub in that game, but before he was injured, of course. When you're playing with someone like Braithwaite and and Pjanic, I mean, Pjanic is not that great, really. He could be a good box-to-box player at his heyday, but now he's not. And his stint at Juventus proved it. I think that he's not exactly the best of central midfielders, and this is. I mean, they refuse to take the gift. Atletico Madrid dropped points against Levante. They lost 2-0 against Levante, and it was up to Barca and Real Madrid to catch up to them. Real Madrid did, Barca didn't. And so Barcelona, in my opinion, really shot themselves on the foot. They didn't look as effective. They didn't look effective at all. And I think Cadiz getting 1 point from them at the Camp Nou is a big deal. Like, seriously, a big deal. Because Barcelona now, anyone almost can take points from the Camp Nou. And after the loss against PSG in the Champions League, that doesn't really bode well for the rest of the season. It looks like they will be ousted from all competitions. And next week they're going to be facing Sevilla, then the game against Sevilla in the Cup. And it doesn't look well. Seriously, it doesn't look decent for them. I'll tell you who looks decent too. Real Sociedad, though, 4-0 winners against Alaves. Of course, Esak was the hero of the hour, but David Silva also was another hero. A couple of assists for him. Esak with a couple of goals, a hat-trick actually, in the 41st, 49th and 62nd minute, with Porto adding the 4th goal. Real Sociedad now back into somewhat of a contention for European spots. 41 points, 4 points behind Sevilla, of course, play Osasuna today. Huesca defeated Granada 3-2 in an Andalusian thriller. Actually, it was crazy. It was a crazy old first half. Cuina opened the scoring for Granada for the visitors. Mir missed a penalty for Huesca. Escriche equalised. Pulido scored the second. Fulquier from Granada scored an own goal to make it 3-1 for Huesca. Soro back again to score the second goal for Granada from the assist from Daniel Machis. And then, of course, Sanchez was sent off in the 91st minute. German Sanchez was sent off in the 91st minute for Granada. It was a crazy old game. It was very open, very entertaining. But in the end, Huesca, Mr. Draws in La Liga, actually won a game. And they're not that far from saving themselves from relegation. They're 19th at the bottom of the table. Valladolid with 21, Elche and Eibar with 21 as well, and Alaves with 22. So they could still save themselves with a couple of other victories. And Athletic Bilbao drawn against Villarreal 1-1 at the San Mamés. Atletico Bilbao equalised for Alex Berenguer after Gerard Moreno scored the opener in the 16th minute. La Liga fixtures, of course, continue today, as you mentioned, with Osasuna playing Sevilla. Boston are going to be playing their game in hand against Elche on Wednesday, and round 25 kicks off on Friday. Levante vs Athletic Bilbao, Eibar Huesca on Saturday, Sevilla Barcelona on Saturday as well, Alaves Osasuna, Getafe Valencia, Celta Vigo Valladolid, Cadiz vs Betis on Sunday, Granada vs Elche, Villarreal vs Atletico Madrid, and the next Monday it will be Real Madrid vs Real Sociedad. Finishing off and quickly going on to the Bundesliga. 3 games were played on Sunday, of course, to round up round 22 of the Bundesliga. Augsburg drawn level against Bayer Leverkusen 1-1. They managed to score first via a major howler from Bayer Leverkusen's goalkeeper. Lomb in this case. It wasn't Radetzky, of course. He was injured, so Lomb was in him, and he was dumb. He was dumb in that goal, really. 1-0 for Augsburg at half-time, and it was a ridiculous goal given away in the 5th minute for Augsburg. Florian Niederlechner would never say no for such gifts from the goalkeeper. 1-0 it goes for Augsburg at half-time. Bayer Leverkusen, of course, played the second half like it is life or death for them to equalise, but they only managed to equalise in the 95th minute by Edmond Tapsoba, the centre-half, from the cross from Demarai Gray. It was 1-1 at Augsburg, and Bayer Leverkusen certainly find themselves in a tough position when it comes to Champions League qualifications. 5 points behind Eintracht Frankfurt, Wolfsburg, and 10 points behind RB Leipzig, but that's another discussion to be had. And speaking of RB Leipzig, of course, as I mentioned in the review of that game yesterday, Hertha Berlin hosted them, and Leipzig managed to bounce back against them 3-0 away from home. The goals from Sabitzer, Mukiele, and Willy Orban. Again, as I mentioned in the review, Hertha Berlin played the first 15 minutes of each half, really, and the next half an hour of each half was Leipzig's. They scored, the first goal by Sabitzer in the first half, inside half an hour. Then the second half, in the 71st minute, Mukiele adding the second, Willy Orban adding the third. This was the perfect game, I think, for Leipzig to bounce back and to set themselves up for what's next now. And I think looking at the lay of the land on the other side for Liverpool and how they're performing in the Premier League, I don't think that is impossible for Leipzig to turn the deficit around and defeat them 3-0 or even more at Anfield. But they just need to be a little bit more precise up front, because they missed a lot of opportunities as well against Hertha Berlin. Hoffenheim managed to thrash Werder Bremen 4-0 at home. Elias Bebu was the hero of the show, really. A goal and an assist on the day. Munas de Boer, a goal and an assist on the day. Baumgartner scoring the second. And of course, the fourth goal was added by Ruter in the 90th minute at full time, 4-0 for Hoffenheim. The first victory in a while, really, for Hoffenheim. It haven't been their sort of season so far, and since the victory against Köln, this is the first victory in the Bundesliga. They spend 4 games on the bounce, including a Europa League tie, of course, against Molde away from home. Last Thursday, 3-3, they drawn away from home, but now I think they're back to not their best, really, but something close. They're still hovering around the middle of the table, 11th with 26 points. I think the European places escaped them, so they will just try and get the best finish they could in the Bundesliga season, and maybe try and go as far in the Europa League if they can. Round 22, of course, still has one. Werder Bremen and Arminia Bielefeld still have a game in hand, though. Round 23 kicks off next Friday with Werder Bremen faces Eintracht Frankfurt. Wolfsburg face Hertha Berlin on Saturday. Stuttgart Schalke as well. Bayern Munich hosts Köln on Saturday. Dortmund hosts Arminia Bielefeld. Leipzig host Borussia Mönchengladbach. And on Sunday, 28th February, Union Berlin host Hoffenheim. Mainz host Augsburg, and Bayer Leverkusen host Freiburg. That's it from me. Always your boy, the HOD of the PSP. Thanks for watching / listening. Follow us on social media, site PSP on Twitter, page SitePod on Instagram, and of course, listen to podcasts on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. And until next time, I'll be seeing you soon. Goodbye.